Now, you've probably seen this image floating around social media where people are trying to fight over what is the more iconic item from anime. And I think people make a lot of good points that there's a lot missing from this. Like, it's not just these items that you can consider iconic, and there are some that seem more iconic than others. So I went ahead and just compiled what I consider to be the top 20 most iconic items from anime, and then we're just going to go ahead and see where they stack up against each other. First up, we have Guts' sword. Now, I haven't even seen Berserk, but even I know how iconic this sword is. There's multiple people trying to train up to be able to even try to like wield the sword, swing the sword, because it's supposed to be like 400 pounds within like the universe. And right now, I think like a couple people have gotten to the point where they could swing like a 100-pound version of this sword. So, in terms of weapons, notoriety, and everything, I feel like people recognize this sword. A huge contender to this would probably be Zabuza's sword from Naruto, but we already have something from Naruto, and I didn't really want to double up on it. So I think it could probably sit comfortably in B tier, because it's not about where it stacks up within the anime world. I'm looking at more of like what is iconic in general. So like even people who aren't into anime, would they recognize this? And I think people see Guts' sword and they know it's from an anime, and they know it's like a big deal within even anime because of just how big the sword is. Next, we got Speed Racer's car, which I think is called Mach 5. For those who want to argue about Racer's relevancy, it's definitely less relevant now, but I think we have reached a point of mainstream notoriety, because when I went to go look up images for the car, everyone was calling Speed Racer a cartoon. Like, they don't even know it's actually like an anime, and it came from Japan. We've crossed the bridge into like, okay, this is just like an anime thing, and it's like, no, this is just a thing. Like, people know this car. This is probably like the most famous car in all of anime, and this came out in like the 60s, and even to this day people still know it. I feel like more people have made this car in real life and have replicated it versus any other car that's been shown in anime. So we're gonna put it probably goes above Guts' sword, but I don't think it gets to A tier yet. We might mess around with these positions later on. Huge Death Note. There's been so much Death Note media, and it's such a short series. I'm gonna put it in A for right now. It very well might be S tier, which I labeled Z tier because this is an anime list and Z is much cooler than S. So I'm gonna put it for A tier for now. We might bump it up later because this is a strong contender for Z tier, but we're gonna put it high A tier for now, because between like the Netflix show, how many remakes of this story there's been, and the Death Note has caused so much even like real life controversy. You could just look it up. Like, when this show was airing, middle school kids went a little crazy. So we're gonna put that in A tier. Okay, this is instant S tier. Like, we don't even have to. You fight me on this all you want. That's a S tier iconic item from an anime. Yeah, you can argue that it's a trading card thing, but the same can go for Pokemon. Everyone can agree that Pokemon definitely deserves like somewhere on the list. Next, we got Ichigo's Hollow Mask. Now, people are going to be like, why didn't you put Ichigo's sword for the list? But to be honest, I think more people know and recognize Ichigo's Hollow Mask versus his sword. people will see a sword and be like, okay, he wields a sword. I just don't think it's as iconic as the imagery of his mask. And people can argue whether or not you could even consider this like an item within anime. But I consider this something. I had to go with something from the like each of the big three, and I think the hollow mask is like way more iconic than his sword. But even still, I'm gonna put it C tier because I don't think it gets to the level of Speed Racer's car or Guts' sword, which I think is called Dragon Slayer. Because I think he has different swords, and that one's called Dragon Slayer. But obviously, Ichigo's mask has like it evolves over the course of the show. But I feel like the half mask is what most people recognize. Ooh. Now, this might offend some people. I don't think Luffy's hat is as iconic as people think it is. Like, yeah, One Piece has got like a huge surge of popularity ever since like Gear 5 has come out. I just don't think people consider his hat as like as iconic as like fans of One Piece do. Like, it definitely, I feel like more people know about Speed Racer's car, more people know Guts' sword, even Ichigo's hollow mask. I'm gonna put it in D tier. It just really isn't that iconic. It is within the show, but I don't think overall, in terms of like when people think about anime and think about things within anime, that they go towards Luffy's hat. I feel like that's probably one of the last things, and fight me on that if you want. Go right ahead. Ooh, see, this has like the same deal with, similar to Mach 5 Speed Racer's car, where the motorcycle from Akira is probably the most iconic motorcycle, maybe just in general. Like, I feel like the only other motorcycle that might compare to the motorcycle in Akira is maybe Batman's. But this is firmly A. Definitely A. And we're going to put that above Death Note, to be honest. Just because, like, again, like, a lot of people have recreated this bike. I don't think people think about the Death Note when they think about anime. But when they see the Death Note, they definitely know what it is. But I feel like even within anime and outside of anime, there's been more homage paid to the Akira slide than maybe like any other thing ever from anime. If anything, to be honest, it's S tier. That's Z tier. That's straight Z tier. That's easy, actually. Alright. So, I only really included this because I saw so many other people try to bring this up, is the mask from Tokyo Ghoul. But I think people see it and they go like, okay, I think that's from an anime. I just don't think people really know what it is. And it definitely is not more notable or iconic than Ichigo's hollow mask or Luffy. This is easy D tier. Easy D tier. To be honest, I probably should add, I didn't think I would need an F tier for this list because everything is so huge, but that might have deserved F tier, but we're just gonna go with bottom D tier. Ooh, Gundam suits. if this has like the same thing as with like Speed Racer's car, or if this was like 10 years ago, this is like an easy S tier. But I feel like Gundam is like slowly falling off. It feels more like kind of like a franchise that's meant to sell like the model kits more so than than try to entertain people. I actually hear, what was that recent run of Gundam that just came out? Something Witch, I don't know, but I actually hear it's good. I might check it out. It's just, even with people who have seen it, they love it. It's still not like even close to like people talking about it as an anime for the season that it came out in. So I'm gonna put it just below A tier. Yeah, so Gundam, easy A tier. I'm gonna put it just below Death Note though. Now, here's something I don't understand. When I saw other people try to talk about Attack on Titan in terms of the iconic items from anime, everyone was talking about Mikasa's scarf. Like, I get it, within the show, Mikasa's scarf is huge, and it's definitely like an integral part of the story throughout. I just don't think it's the most iconic item from the show. I think the key to the basement is probably a more iconic item imagery than the Mikasa's scarf, because at the end of the day, it's just a red scarf. What I think should be from Attack on Titan is the Wings of Freedom patch. Like, that's what like everybody takes away from Attack on Titan. It signifies so much metaphorical narrative function within the show. Like, birds mean freedom. Like, this is what the scouts use. It's such an iconic moment when all the scouts finally get through training and then you see them don the Wings of Freedom. So I just think the patch from Attack on Titan is probably the most iconic item from the show, especially since I've seen infinite tattoos of this. Infinite amount of people have gotten tattoos of the Wings of Freedom. So it could just be recency bias. I'm going to put it above Speed Racer's car. I don't think it's reached Gundam level yet. I think it's reached levels of notoriety above Gundam as a show, like Attack on Titan vs. Gundam. I think more people are recognizing Attack on Titan, not just for being like a good anime, but just like a good story in general. I can definitely agree it's one of the once in a generation type of stories, and I definitely feel like lucky that I got to experience it as it came out, because that's one of those things you just kind of had to be there. Yeah, there's people that binge it now and they like it, but to start from season 1 and then have to wait 4 years for season 2, and then wait like another like 2 or 3 years for like season 3, and then all the discussion that continued in those down years, there you just had to be there. So in terms of an item though, I don't think it's as iconic as a Gundam suit. Like, there are robotics companies now finally making Gundam suits, and that's huge. Alright. Now, here's something I feel like a lot of people missed. Like, every time I see people say, like, oh, what's the more iconic anime item? Like, they always include, like, Luffy's hat with some of the top ones. I feel like the Digivice is way more iconic than Luffy's. And I'm not even like a Digimon fanboy. I just know like people know this, especially like since they have the like Tamagotchi clones that are just like Digivices. And it's such like a cool little doodad. But where should I put it on the list? I don't think it's more iconic than Gundam's. If this was like 10 years ago, this would easily be like above the Wings of Freedom. I just don't think it's at that level anymore. And I don't think it's above Speed Racer's car. But I do think more people can name this than can name Guts' sword. So I'm going to put the Digivice there in B tier. Now, some people might say like this shouldn't even be here. I don't know. I disagree. I feel like the scissor blade from Kill la Kill is something that, while very simple in its design, is still very like unique. I feel like in terms of all the swords within anime, this is probably like the most bought like keychain. I've seen so many people with keychains of this scissor blade. A lot of times they use it to like open their mail and stuff like that. But I just think the unique design, its place in like anime. I mean, the meme is Kill la Kill saved anime, and one of the biggest things you think about when it comes to Kill la Kill is the scissor blade. I don't think it's above Gundam though. I think at this point it's probably above the Digivice. Maybe not. People are gonna be pissed if I put it above Guts' sword. But you know, I'm just gonna put it above Speed Racer's car. Like, if we give it 5 years, it might go lower. But I think the fact that people expected Kill la Kill to fall off in terms of like people's, people thinking about it and talking about it, Kill la Kill is still talked about to this day. And it wasn't a long show. Like, Speed Racer had like multiple different decades add on to its media. And the fact that Kill la Kill made such a huge impact with such a short story, I think it's huge. And a lot of that I feel like has to do with like its stylization. And I feel like the peak of its stylization is the fact that they went with a scissor blade. And obviously that makes sense within the context of the show. But I feel like everything in that show complements each other so well. This, I feel like people are going to argue about whether or not you can even consider this an item, because it's kind of like his body, similar to Ichigo's hollow mask. Because like, it's not like other people can get Ichigo's hollow mask, even though you can, there's plenty of hollow masks. It's technically part of Ichigo. Alphonse's suit of armor is not his body. His soul is just bonded to it. It's made very clear, like, his body still exists. It's not exactly him. So I think it counts as an item, because that's why I didn't include Soul Scythe from Soul Eater, because that's just him. But I think Alphonse's suit of armor counts, and I think it's just below the Gundam suit, because even though people might not know Fullmetal Alchemist, they've seen Alphonse's suit of armor. And when anyone considers like thinking about like Fullmetal Alchemist, or like they know nothing, people have seen this suit of armor. I remember before I ever started watching Fullmetal Alchemist, I remember seeing the pseudo armor everywhere and being like, what is that from? So, yeah, we're going to put it A tier, just below Gundam. Alright, we're getting into some heavy hitters now. The headband from Naruto. Easy Z tier. Right up there. I don't think it's more iconic than Akira's motorcycle, but I think it's the most iconic item from the big three. Like, it's similar to Death Note, where like when you have to ban it from schools, that's when you know like you've reached the saturation level. Because I remember going to school and multiple people wore these to school, and teachers had to tell people to take them off because it's just distracting. Like, people in Naruto run through the halls. Similar to Death Note. People were bringing Death Notes to school and making like weird veiled threats, and they kind of just had to nip that in the butt. But Naruto's headband for the Leaf Village, way more iconic than Death Note, I feel like. Or at least pretty close, but I think it just edges it out to be in the Z tier over Death Note and the A tier. Alright. Now this is within like the same vein of Akira's motorcycle and Speed Racer's car, where the Vespa from Fulikuli is probably like the most iconic Vespa. Like, when people think about scooters in anime, this is the scooter they think about. When people recreate scooters, this is probably one of the most recreated scooter that people make in real life. Like, I've seen multiple people like match this scooter and ride it around in real life. But I don't think it's more iconic than Speed Racer's car. I don't think it's more iconic than the Digivice. It might just edge out Guts' sword. Actually, no, I'm going to put it above the Hollow Mask. Right there in C tier. Alright. We got the Hunter license from Hunter x Hunter. Even though, like, early on, they make Hunter licenses, like, seem like way more of a used accessory than it ends up being. Now, I don't know much about the manga run, but at least in what you see in the anime, it falls off pretty quick in terms of people seeing it, people using it. But I think in terms of items from anime, this is still like one of the most used imageries sort of translate to the real world, because I see a lot of people use the Hunter license as like those little stickers they put over like their debit cards and stuff. But I'm not where should I put it on the list? Man, a lot of B tier is getting like fluffed up, but I mean that's pretty average, right? Like, technically it should be sort of like a bell curve, or like a sideways bell curve. I think right now more people recognize the Wings of Freedom than they do the Hunter license. So, but definitely more people know the Hunter license, I think, more than the Scissor Blade. So we're going to put it in B tier, just below the Wings of Freedom. And then we got Beyblades. I feel like this was a huge one that people missed in terms of items from anime. Like, we can't disregard how much animation relies on profiting off of merchandise. And I feel like this is a huge merchandise push, is Beyblades, because I still have friends that still like get Beyblades here and there, and they'll just like let it rip at their house and stuff just for fun. And I mean, if you've never played with Beyblades, they're actually kind of fun. And I've seen the anime do some like crazy stuff. I don't watch the anime, but I've seen crazy stuff happen in it from like clips. I think Beyblades probably go right below Gundams. It's definitely up there. I just don't think it's as iconic as what's above it. Okay. The big one. We're just gonna put this right here at the top of Z tier because it's a Pokeball. People can argue that like Pokemon shouldn't be like considered like an anime because again it's a similar thing. It's a merchandise push for other stuff, but you can't ignore the fact that Pokemon is the largest media franchise currently in existence. There is no other media franchise that is more profitable than Pokemon. And that's like you have to go up against like Mickey Mouse. You have to go up against like Star Wars. Pokemon eclipses those. Easy. It's the GOAT when it comes to selling things. And part of selling things is advertising things. I feel like more people recognize Pokeballs than probably any other thing anywhere. And again, like you're going up against like lightsabers. A lot of people know lightsabers. But like even people in like third world countries that like don't have access to like TV and stuff, they'll know what a Pokeball is more than a lightsaber. Like that's how far reaching. So let's get to the top. That's the GOAT. There's no discussion. Pokeball's number one. And if Pokeball's number one, Dragon Balls are number two. You could argue like Yu-Gi-Oh should be up more than Dragon Balls, but in terms of being related to back to anime, I think more people think of Yu-Gi-Oh cards as the actual cards versus like Dragon Balls is like part of anime. Like Goku's the grandfather of the big three. He's what really blew up anime in the West. And I feel like more people understand the use of Dragon Balls versus like the intricacies of the game of Yu-Gi-Oh. Like more, I would say like grandmas would probably know that Dragon Balls grant wishes more than like how a Yu-Gi-Oh card works. And then last but not least is the Crescent Moon Wand from Sailor Moon, which I think it's S tier. But is it more iconic than the leaf headband? Is it more iconic than the motorcycle from Akira? I think yes. I think Sailor Moon is one of the most iconic anime and notable anime that has ever existed. Like, instantly when people think like, oh, okay, is anime just like for guys and stuff like that? Like, no, there's anime for girls. Like the first one you think of is Sailor Moon. And I've seen so many toy wands of this, it's insane. So I think just because like more people probably play with the wands than people know the bike. I mean, is it about more than the bike? To be honest, these I feel like are interchangeable, even considering like how vastly different they are. But we're gonna put it just above the motorcycle and Akira. So there you go. That's my list. Let me know if you think I missed anything, or if you think some things should or shouldn't be in the places that they are. I feel like what people are most going to complain about is where I put the straw hat, but I just don't think One Piece is known for any like single item. I think One Piece is more so known for the characters and like the art style versus like anything going on. Like I feel like the flag for One Piece, even though it has a straw hat on the flag for their ship, I feel like that is more iconic than just Luffy's hat. Maybe I should have put that here. I don't know. Let me know. What do you think? Okie dokie. Bye.